Let's continue our conversation that we started a little bit earlier with political economist Patrick Bond. So you heard us speaking about it in the interview. The EFF has released a statement saying that they are not shocked by Glencore's admission of foreign bribery and manipulation. The EFF also says they don't believe any of Glencore's business dealings in South Africa are above board. So to speak a little bit more on this, we are joined by the EFF national spokesperson, Sinao Tambo, who is in studio. Great to have you. Thanks for coming in.
No problem.
Yeah, so let's get your reaction straight away to that ruling.
Look, as the economic freedom fighters, we're not shocked that what we have long identified as a multinational criminal syndicate in Glencore has been involved in what can only be described in a global network of state capture. So they have established networks across the world in South America and Africa, which will enable them to be able to extract the mineral resources of these countries through shady, dodgy dealings and capturing of states and capturing of state officials. So we're not shocked by this because we had long identified them as that type of character. But generally, the mining cartel of the world does not operate in any moral or ethical manner in any country and state. So Glencore has been implicated in securing oil contracts through bribes. They've been able to secure and avoid government audits through bribes. And of course, they've also been bribing judges in various nations in order to avoid lawsuits. This has been happening in Cameroon, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Venezuela, in Brazil, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which we have seen have been in a war, permanent state of war over their natural resources for over 60 to 70 years. So Glencore is part and parcel of a global imperialist multinational companies which undermine the sovereignty of states, undermine the rule of law, and undermine democracies by bribing them in order to ensure that they secure their wealth and their profit maximization efforts.
And you've been saying this for a while. And I mean, one of your statements that came out yesterday is that you basically say that you are vindicated as constantly calling Glencore a criminal syndicate. That's what you've been calling them.
Absolutely. And their operations have been no different in South Africa. It's extremely naive to think that they would be bribing and meddling in politics and democracies and economic policy perspectives in Cameroon, in DRC, in Brazil, in Venezuela, but would have legitimate business dealings in South Africa. It's foolish. So the current president, Cyril Ramaphosa, had a 9.47% shareholding in Optimum Coal Mines, which was a subsidiary and intermediary of Glencore. So they operate through creating shell companies and shell subsidiary intermediaries, which will facilitate these bribes and buy political influence. And Ramaphosa was part and parcel of that because he was the chairperson of Optimum at a certain point in time. And then he was proceeded to be a deputy president who led the war room in an attempt to revitalize key state-owned entities and Eskom in particular. And Glencore is well known and well recorded to have been engaging in terrorist negotiation methods to increase their coal price supply to Eskom and at exorbitant prices while they were providing substandard coal. So South Africa is not immune to this, and the report from the Justice Department's financial division did say that how they operated in the countries that were named was no different to how they operated in the world generally. And our primary concern now is where are the banks of South Africa which are so quick to shut down the banks or the accounts of people who are associated to corrupt criminal networks. Here is Glencore. Where are the associates of Glencore? Where are the bank accounts of Glencore? When are they being shut down? Because our banks like to crusade and parade themselves as anti-corruption. But here's a global criminal today, and there's been no outcry from our financial sector. There's been no statement from the Department of Public Enterprises, no statement from the president, who was a shareholder there and was leading the supposed revitalization of Eskom, which has completely failed. So there's complete silence on this. The State of Capture Commission report of Zondo completely ignored the allegations against Glencore and decided to focus solely on Gupta-aligned entities. But because Zondo only performs for factional interest, he could not go after Glencore. He said nothing on Glencore. We are waiting to see if he's going to call a press conference now, because that's his style of operation, to condemn Glencore's global influences and call for further investigations on Glencore's business dealings in South Africa. There's complete silence. And as the EFF were vindicated in saying that is because of the capture of the officials of this country.
So you are now calling for a major investigation into this. I mean, we've got, it's there, the rulings are there in black and white, and you are saying that you want particularly SARS as an organization to go back to, I think the date was, when was
2007.
it? 2007 to present, look at their bank statements, look at the money flow, and watch every cent and where it went. Have you formally asked them to investigate that? You're also calling on the NPA and the Hawks. So talk to us about, have you taken that a step further?
Absolutely. So the EFF is in the process of engaging and writing to the South African Revenue Services to collaborate with the National Prosecuting Authority, the Financial Intelligence Center, and the Hawks to ensure that they investigate all of Glencore's business dealings through their intermediaries or subsidiaries here in South Africa. And that investigation must look at their banking transactions since 2007, because 2007 seems to be the period where a lot of these corrupt dealings have been targeted or isolated across the world. So we are calling on these institutions in South Africa to trace the banking transactions of Glencore, and that must firstly be preceded by freezing all of their accounts, if they have any, and all of the accounts of their associates, to trace if there's been any interaction or transactions between Glencore and government representatives or government entities or businesses aligned to politicians in South Africa, and to ensure that this work is also done through working with telecommunications entities, because the report on what happened in the Democratic Republic of Congo is that an agent of Glencore there was receiving calls and SMSs regarding a contractual situation or deadlock there in the DRC. And that was resolved through the agent telling this Glencore representative at an international level that we need more ammunition if we are to get the necessary political pressure to ensure that they get a favorable outcome in that contract negotiation process. And a few days after that, $500,000 were deposited into the accounts of this representative, and their contractual deadlock was resolved. So we must be able to look into those types of communications, so telecommunications investigations, banking investigations, tax investigations, because it is undoubtedly a fact that there might have been illicit financial removal of monies from South Africa to foreign and offshore accounts from the profits that Glencore has made in this country. So we're calling for a very sophisticated type of investigation that must be independent from the President of South Africa, independent from the departments of South Africa, because they've been complicit in Glencore's dealings in this country.
I want to elaborate a little bit more on the Zondo Commission, and we keep talking about the breezing over of Glencore, and one has to ask the question, why? Why was that something that was not taken very, very seriously? I mean, in every angle, because there are many angles that can be taken. Was it perhaps not the mandate of the Commission to go into that? Was the mandate just to look into the Gupta affairs and state capture just with the Guptas, or a bigger mandate? I mean, why do you believe that Glencore was just pushed aside and sort of like, you know, all right, we'll worry about that another day if we ever get to that?
I think at the root of the ignoring of Glencore's corrupt operations in South Africa is their relationship with Cyril Ramaphosa. So we have long identified that the State of Capture Commission, which was headed by Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, has been treating Cyril Ramaphosa with kids' gloves. And as a result, that treatment is going to infect all other forms of investigation. So the mandate of the State of Capture Commission was to investigate state capture. And that was not solely limited to Gupta activity, but the corruption and the degeneration of our state-owned entities in whatever way or form that could have happened. And Glencore is part and parcel of that. I mean, they were trying to extort 8 billion rands worth of increases in their supply of substandard coal to Eskom. So that should have been a core agenda of the State of Capture Commission as to why did they do that, what type of political influence were they relying upon in order for them to achieve those ends. I mean, they stopped supplying coal to the Ndrina plant because of their terrorist methods of negotiation. So the State of Capture Commission didn't focus on them because of its alignment to a previous shareholder, and Ramaphosa, who was actually through Shanduka as well, having dealings with Optimum Coal and Glencore as a whole. So it's the relationship that Glencore has with the political elite in this country that has allowed them to avoid accountability through a commission which has been pursuing just plainly factional types and led types of investigations.
A claim they denied. I mean, they did sit there, they denied that, and we need to add that on. Economist Patrick Bond was basically saying this is a Gupta 2.0 loading. Do you think so? Do you think we're going to have a whole investigation into Glencore now?
I think Glencore, it might be, I mean, it's a similar type of capture that we're referring to, but Glencore's one is at a much larger, nefarious and international scale. Yeah. And I think the forces that we're dealing with when one refers to a mining and oil giant at the level of Glencore, I mean, to have influence in Venezuela, to have influence in Brazil, to have influence in the DRC, these are mineral-rich countries where billions and billions of dollars are being exchanged. So the capture has reached an international level when one speaks of Glencore. And South Africa is just part and parcel of a much broader imperialist and global economic sabotage and undermining of democracies and the will of the people in the quest for profit maximization. So I'm not sure if South Africa has the capacity to be able to investigate Glencore thoroughly. People in South Africa are bought for cheap tenders of roads to not fill potholes and cheap infrastructure projects. So Glencore can buy this entire country if it needs be. So I'm not sure if we have the necessary requirement at the level of integrity by those who are leading even our state institutions, be it the NPA or SARS, to properly tackle a global imperialist giant like Glencore. So we'll need to keep a watchful eye, all of us. The EFF will certainly ensure that the necessary pressure is there and the necessary accountability is there. But we must understand that we're dealing with a much global, much larger and nefarious international giant in terms of capturing states.
Indeed, and we understand that. But we look locally and we look at how we struggle every day. And we talk about ESCOM, we talk about load shedding that we have had every single day implemented, and it's just getting worse and worse. And many date this back to the years of Glencore, the manipulation of prices when it came to the cost of coal and many other issues. So there are a lot of unanswered questions. And this is what we're hoping to find the solutions to, because people that are at the bottom of this need to be held responsible.
Absolutely. I mean, we do agree. We must make an attempt to hold Glencore accountable. But looking at our state institutions and their incapacity to hold corrupt individuals accountable for even meager things like corruption relating to building stadiums, tackling Glencore is going to require a sophisticated state with integrity. And that's not what we have at the moment. It's going to require a state that has an appetite to fight corruption. And with Cyril Ramaphosa implicated in Glencore in terms of having been a shareholder, in terms of having been a chairperson of its board, it's going to be an extremely difficult situation and process. There's been no verifiable evidence of corruption being fought honestly or forthrightly in South Africa. But we do encourage South Africans to actually have a deeper look into the Glencore issue. It mustn't be a discussion that is brushed under the carpet. We must demand that key state institutions and departments that are involved in mining in South Africa particularly, they must speak out. The Department of Public Enterprises must have a position because they're involved in petty scraps and debates with journalists and IOL and independent media, but they're not speaking on a global issue of states being captured by an entity like Glencore. So we need them to speak up on things that are meaningful and not these factional debates and factional pursuits of people that are being done. We need our banks to show us that they're actually consistent. They must shut down all of the bank accounts of Glencore, if there are any, and any of their associates who've operated in this country since 2007, pending the investigations we have called for. If they are really anti-corruption and pursuing an agenda of anti-corruption, and not just an anti-black pursuit of fighting the enemies of the political elite of this country.
Well, there you have it, EFF national spokesperson Sinawo Tambo reacting to the Glencore findings and calling for tough investigations in South Africa with regard to Glencore and its operations.